And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be having a discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some news clips, reading through, and having some discussion. And of course, you can find me at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or at Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And if you wouldn't mind checking me out there, I can sometimes post things there I can't put anywhere else now that it's been changed a little bit, as well as Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Check it out if you get the chance as we get ready to jump in. And of course, for those of you who are listening and not able to see what is going on, I do read through as many of the comments as is plausible in the live portion so that you can keep up with the conversation. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in so far today. I see Cass Love is here. Helter is here. Dragon is here today. Delo. Carrick is here, saying hello thus far. Elect of the End Times channel is here. Said he heard cyber attacks on pharmacies and hospital payment systems. Can you confirm? I haven't heard anything about cyber attacks on pharmacies or hospital payment systems. I have heard that AT&T is having serious problems where, what are they, closing in on 100,000 customers now that have no service on their cell phones, and they can't seem to be able to fix the glitch. It just keeps growing so far. Cyber attacks on pharmacies and hospital payment systems, that happens off and on all the time. It usually doesn't amount to much because I know that they make a big deal out of paying a ransom to people who shut down payment systems at hospitals and places like that are often targets. They always recover that. The transactions are too large not to be traceable, and they typically get recovered anyways. But I haven't heard anything so far about hospitals or pharmacies being targeted, just problems with AT&T so far today. It's made international news, actually, because they were talking about it on the BBC before they were talking about it here. Boogers is here. Glad you could make it today, Boogers, as we get ready to jump into some of the things that are going on in the world today. And we'll start off in New York. If you heard weird noises, that's Dusty. There she goes. Dusty was grooming herself and being really loud and stupid about it. And there she is in the chair. And Puck is here and says, did you hear France passed a law to imprison and or fine anyone that opposes mRNA vaccines? Really? No, I did not hear that. I'll have to look for that one. And John is here and says, we don't need no stinking phones. Well, unfortunately, we're at a point in the world today where that cell phone has become your best friend for most people. Let's just put it that way. I don't like the phone. I don't use it for much more than phone calls, but most people rely on it very heavily. Can't be anywhere without it. It's replaced so many things. Think about what your modern cell phone has replaced. People don't wear watches anymore. People don't use calendars anymore. People don't have to set their clocks anymore. People don't use calculators anymore. Not that they can do math anyways. People don't use dictionaries anymore. People don't have cameras. People don't use filming or photography cameras anymore. It's replaced so much. I could go on and on and on. I mean, it's replaced your flashlight. And that's all really neat and convenient, but it also makes you very extremely self-reliant on one small device that can be very easily controlled. As something I've pointed out many times is that your cell phone, if someone wanted to track you, let's just say police got a warrant, wanted to check your phone, they could turn your microphone and camera on without you even knowing it. You wouldn't even know. And Peter's here. He says AT&T more likely back-end update that caused issues. That's possible. Happened at 2 a.m. when these updates occur. And that, yes, France passed a law after pushing it through quietly after it was rejected the first time. Well, just something else for the people in France to protest and riot about, because that's all that happens. That's all that's happened in France for the last 5 or 6 years. It's like nonstop riots and protests. Elect says, has anyone heard from Southern Prepper? He hasn't been on in several days. Hope he's all right. I don't know that channel very well. But as we kick around some of the news articles here, we're going to jump to New York. New York Post article. If it comes up, there it is. New York law that would have allowed 800,000 non-citizens to vote struck as unconstitutional by the appeals court, enacted in violation. So, yeah, that didn't happen. I kind of figured this is what was going to go down with this. Nice try, though, New York, and Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul. Nice try, because they've tried to push things like this in New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, California, all of these like super uber liberal states have tried to push something like this. Article reads, controversial New York City law that would have allowed 800,000 non-citizens, I'm sure it's more than that, but legal residents to vote in municipal elections was struck down as unconstitutional by a state appeals court Wednesday. Quote, we determined that this local law was enacted in violation of the New York State Constitution and municipal home rule law and thus must be declared null and void. Appellate Judge Paul Wooten wrote in the 3-1 majority decision. Wooten said the state constitution broadly refers to only citizens having the right to vote in elections, municipal as well as statewide, or for state legislative offices. Keeping in mind also, as was pointed out yesterday, a Chinese national activist who is basically an illegal immigrant was put onto the electoral council, voted onto the electoral council in California yesterday. Okay, has no business even being in the country, let alone working as a lawmaker here. Quote again from the article. Article 9 provides that the elected officials of local government shall be elected by the people, which incorporates by reference the eligibility requirements for voting under Article 2, Section 1, applying exclusively to citizens. The judge wrote, the decision upholds a lower court ruling issued by Staten Island Supreme Court Justice Ralph Porzio in June of 22, which Mayor Eric Adams and the City Council had appealed. Trying to get some extra votes, Mayor Adams? It's not going to work. Writing for the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, Wooten said if non-citizens are allowed to vote, it stands to reason they could also run for mayor. He ruled such a dramatic change violated the municipal home rule law, saying the council and mayor had failed to put the issue on the ballot for the voters to decide. I hope the voters wouldn't be that stupid. Although, like I said, it just kind of happened in California yesterday. Catching up a couple of comments here. Sven commenting there about Southern Prepper. It said had something come up and he'll be back. Carrick says he's not seen him. Puck says New York politicians involved in that should be arrested. Yeah, good luck. That would be nice if anybody was ever held accountable, but that's not quite how it works, is it? And All People is here. Glad you could make it today. Peter says there was a CME, but that would not affect just a single carrier, but have heard Starlink had issues, but do not see issues here in New Zealand with Starlink. Okay. But yeah, that's the state of affairs in New York. They want non-citizens to vote. They want to give them the right to vote. That doesn't make any sense. I don't care if they are legal aliens who have a green card or a work permit. They are still not citizens of the United States. They didn't go through the process to become citizens. They aren't trying to be citizens. They don't care. They consider themselves citizens of the world. Citizens of the world. Borders, pah, that means nothing. I'll cross any border I want and just hang out. That's what I want to do. Try that in another country. See if you don't get shot or arrested. See how that works out for you. See how that works out for you. Although they do have a path to citizenship. And man, I had to really scrape to find an article on this. And this comes from Task and Purpose magazine. Courage to Serve Act would provide paths to citizenship for immigrants who serve in the military. Because this had been brought up in discussion, and I tried to find an article on it. This is the best I could come up with. Nobody's talking about this. Don't know if it'll happen or not. Article reads, 2 members of Congress have introduced a bill that would help vetted and qualified immigrants, whatever that means, who serve in the U.S. military become American citizens. The program would not be open to immigrants who are in the country illegally. Okay, that's good. Or on a deportation list, nor would it offer immunity to illegal immigrants awaiting deportation. A congressional staffer who spoke on condition of anonymity told Task and Purpose all military recruits would have to continue to be U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, or hail from 3 tiny Pacific Island nations with long ties to the U.S. So they're being restrictive about this. The bill would offer immigrants who are already headed towards naturalization an expedited path to becoming U.S. citizens. It would not automatically grant citizenship to immigrants who serve in the military, said the staffer, who was not authorized to speak to the media, and yet he did it anyways. Hold still. Representative Pat Ryan and John James are sponsoring the Courage to Serve Act, which would not only help immigrants looking for work, but also address the military's recruiting crisis. A news release from Ryan's office says, quote, if folks have the courage to raise their right hand, swear an oath to protect and defend this nation and put their lives on the line, then they sure as hell deserve the opportunity to become an American citizen. The bill would create a pilot program open to immigrants who successfully complete FBI and United States Citizenship and Immigration Services background checks, who are admissible to the United States and eligible to serve in the military, the news release says. One point I want to make right there, having courage to raise their right hand and swear an oath to protect and defend the nation doesn't mean anything. People will say anything. They'll swear an oath to anything. They'll raise their hand to anything, put their hand on a Bible, put their hand on a stack of Bibles, swear on their mother's grave. Doesn't mean they're good people. Doesn't mean they're honest. It doesn't mean they're going to do what they say they're going to do. But like I said, this idea has been kicked around. People were asking, did you hear they're going to let people do this now? But this does clarify that they're using it as a path for people that are looking to legally become U.S. citizens anyways, that pass background checks, that get properly vetted, not illegal immigrants and not other types. So people who are going to be deported or on the deportation list, people that are here illegally, so on and so forth, would not be permitted to partake of this. Because when I heard it, my first thought was, okay, this might be something like the French Foreign Legion. And of course, the French Foreign Legion allows for you to become a citizen of France for joining the French Foreign Legion and being a member of an upstanding member of the French Foreign Legion for X number of years. It's not open and eligible to French citizens, but to everybody else. I was like, okay, maybe it's something like that. As we catch up some of the comments here, I see Monkey has joined us, and the unknown knows by Voivod. Did I say that right? It says there was a solar-induced disruption on 3 regions of the globe. Well, that happens fairly regularly. Nothing too huge, not for a long time. Take America is here. It says undocumented Americans. They want us to call them. No, undocumented Americans. I had to add that to my list of words that I don't like to hear anymore. And Take America says in the foxhole with Somalis. No thanks. Yeah. Sven says, my governor wants us to do our part by housing immigrants. It would be nice if politicians did their part. No, don't buy into that program. Even if they offer you a check, don't do it. Don't do it. And Puck says, pretty sure there's already that's already a thing. A lot of Filipinos got their citizenship that way, and the devil must be in the details. Helter says, one potential problem this act entails is a matter of loyalty. If these people aren't loyal to their own countries, what makes you think they'll be loyal to ours? Yeah, that's a reasonable argument. And Unknown thinks it's an extraordinarily terrible idea. Peter says they'll just amend the bill after they pass the bill. We'll see. And Jeffro is here. Glad you could make it today. And Spectre says, sorry, haven't been around much, doing a lot of work with power tools and can't hear. That's all right, Spectre. Glad you could make it. And Cruising is here. He says you can add mourners to mostly peaceful protesters with your list of words. Mourners and mostly peaceful protesters. I'll try to remember it all. I had a list and my wife took it because there was something she wanted to add because I'm getting ready to do a video on the subject, actually. Words, politically correct terminology in the media, I am sick and tired of hearing. I'll try to remember. And Gary Edwards has joined us. And Peter says that he's heard the term undocumented citizens. Blech. Yeah, what a load of crap. Now, here's something from the media that is getting suppressed by the media, but it's actually a major story. And it happened last week. It happened after the Super Bowl. And this is a CNN article. Okay. Kansas City shooting may have stemmed from personal dispute. Police say that 2 juveniles are detained. I'm sure some of you might have heard about this, that the parade after the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I don't know if you've seen these Super Bowl parades. Wow, talk about Thug City. It's about as loud and ghetto and trashy as imaginable. The crowds, not the parade. But there was a shooting. Okay, there was a shooting incident at that parade, and the media has done everything possible to crush anyone even hearing about it. Listen to what they have to say, all right? 2 juveniles have been detained in connection with Wednesday's shooting following the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl celebration rally, which left 1 dead and more than 20 wounded. It's more than that. More than 30 people were shot. At least 23 victims have been identified, including a 43-year-old woman who died. Police Chief Stacey Graves said in a news conference Thursday the other 22 victims range from ages 8 to 47. Graves said, adding that half are younger than 16 years old. So most of the people who were shot were children. The shooting appears to have been a dispute between several people that ended in gunfire, Graves said. Noting there is no indication of a nexus to terrorism or homegrown violent extremism. On Wednesday, Graves said 3 people had been detained and an unspecified number of guns recovered by police. On Thursday, a Kansas City police spokesman told CNN 1 person who was in custody was determined to not be involved. 2 juvenile teens remained in custody for further investigation. Several law enforcement officials similarly told CNN the shooting was believed to have been the result of a personal dispute in the area and not an attack on the celebration. All right. Of those, officials said police in custody are believed to have been in the dispute, and after that, initially 10 people were questioned. Blah, blah, blah. Now, do you see anything wrong with this article? And every article I've seen is just like this. Okay. What's the problem here? What's the problem here? Puck says 2 gangbangers. They had no problem releasing 17-year-old Kyle Rittlehouse's name. Imagine that. Dragon says they refuse to say gang violence is blatantly obvious with 2 16-year-olds that were carrying. Peter says juveniles, 1 18, the other 23. I think they were 16 and there was a 22-year-old that was arrested. But, there's conflicting reports. So, we'll hang that right there, Peter. Problem number 1, 30 people were shot. Do you see mass shooting in this article? Because if it was anything else, anyone else, okay? If I got upset at a Starbucks. All right. I don't go to Starbucks, just making a point. I can't afford Starbucks. If I went to a Starbucks and pulled out a gun and started shooting, and 3 people got grazed by a bullet, not even wounded, don't even need stitches. Mass shooting, mass shooting. White man goes crazy. Black person injured. Was it racial? Okay. I don't see mass shooting anywhere in this article, even though 30 people were hit by bullets. 22 of them in intensive care, 1 person dead. Number 2, yeah, it was gang related, as was pointed out here by Dragon. It was gang violence because they were rivals and there was a beef going on. It was a little bit of a revenge thing. Thirdly, the mayor and the chief of police are saying, oh, well, they're juvenile, so we don't want to release. When has that ever happened? When has that ever occurred? Where a young person shot people or tried to shoot people and they plaster their face all over the news internationally. But no, we don't see their faces or hear their names. We don't hear that it's violence. Hell, they don't even want a petition about guns. They just want to hush this right up. And then we have the mayor talking about, and I think it was the mayor here. I think it was the mayor of Kansas City saying, well, we need to redefine crime. We need to redefine the definition of crime. Are you serious? Well, we'll change the word and then it'll be nothing. Oh, no big deal. And they sure as hell don't want to tell you that everybody involved was of color. Oh, the media would never tell you that. Where's the mass shooting outrage? Where is it? 30 people were shot. I mean, come on. Half of them were under the age of 16. And Helter says, trying to downplay the perpetrators, it's like calling World War II a misunderstanding. Yeah, it was a huge misunderstanding. World War I also. That's how we handle things. And Puck says the Kansas City mayor is an idiot. Most of them are. Monkey says CNN is being racist. If you think about it, if a POC shoots a lot of people, crickets, but if a white person does, it's gun control now. Yeah. But not just CNN. Every article looks like this. There's no mention of a mass shooting. There's no mention of insisting upon knowing who these people are. There's no mention of gang violence. Oh, no, they don't want to talk about that. There's no mention of the fact that the perpetrators are, quote, people of color. Seriously. And Unknown wants to know, what does he say? Funny how the governor never sees crime as extremism. The mayor gangs are cult-like, if not just cults. And Sven says, can we redefine truck payments? Yeah, can we redefine a lot of things? I think a lot of things need to be redefined if that's the case. Can we redefine debt so that I don't have any? Can we do that? And Bernob has joined us. Glad you could make it today, Bernob. Popping in on us as we're talking about the Kansas City shooting. The Kansas City shooting. And I've heard about these parades because, Kansas City, this is what their 3rd Super Bowl win in 5 years. And the parades, it's an ocean of what looks like I'm talking about the crowds, of course, not the parade necessarily. An ocean of gangbangers and big clouds of weed is how it's been described to me. Like, this is what it's come to. This is what it's come to. And while we're on the subject, excuse me, of the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? Travis Kelce. I wanted to talk about Travis Kelce really quickly here, or maybe not so quickly. I might end up down a rabbit hole. Some of you saw the short that I did showing medications, my mother-in-law's medications that we're disposing of. My wife and I are disposing of because she has to be committed to a nursing home. She had a very bad stroke she cannot recover from because there's brain damage. She was on, I want to say, 32 meds, all different. 20 of them are in the short. More were in the purse that were disposed of because the nursing home wants to start from scratch. They can't take meds from the outside. They got to do their own. All right. I did a short on it. I got a strike for doing that short, asking the question, how much is too much? I guess YouTube doesn't want me to talk about that. I did a video on it today. I put up a video expanding on my thoughts on that a little bit more. Please look for it on Coffee Talk, on the Coffee Talk channel at Coffee Talk Live. And this ties into that because this is old news, but I think it's important. I think it's important. And it's Travis Kelce and his commercial for the C virus medication. I want to show it to you. I want to show it to you. I want to discuss it a little bit because there's something about this that really bothers me. Here it comes.
Travis, did you know you can get this season's COVID-19 shot when you get your flu shot?
Two things at once.
Two things at once. Two things at once. I'll have two things at once, please. Now back to two things at once. Two things at once.
That's not two things at once.
Mom.
Travis, ask about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
All right. Hopefully everybody heard that clearly. Hopefully everybody heard that clearly. So this is, like I said, this is an older spot. He was paid $20 million. $20 million for that commercial. Okay. And this commercial was done before he was dating Taylor Swift. And before he was dating Taylor Swift, if you weren't a football fan, you probably had no idea who this guy was. Okay. You didn't know who Travis Kelce was if you weren't into football before he was dating Taylor Swift, and he got plastered all over the news. $20 million for that commercial. And, you know, while we're talking about, or I'm, deep in thought on the whole concept of the pharmaceutical industrial complex and how they put you into a position of making you sicker and more codependent on medications constantly, it occurs to me that with things like this, the more something is probably not right for you, the more they try to push it and the more they're willing to invest in trying to convince you to do it or to use it or to be involved with it. Government, companies, media, they could have made any commercial, but no, they're going to hire this guy and pay him $20 million to try to sucker you into taking a shot. Hell, two. Get them both at the same time and really juice yourself up, right? And the analogy that comes to mind is movie commercials, all right? There's two types of movie advertisements because when they do a film and they look at it after they make their movie, they know if they've got a dog or not. Hey, this is really good, or wow, this sucks, all right? And hey, let's throw it out there, or somebody polish this turd and convince the monkeys to come and watch our crappy film. When the movie is good, the trailer or the ad, the commercial ad, will briefly describe something about the film. When the film is trash, then they will put more commercials out. They'll crank commercials out. And all you see are critics agree. This is the greatest action film of the year. Or critics are unanimous. This is the best action comedy this year. They tell you what other people have to think about it rather than telling you what the film is about. When you see that, you know the film's going to be garbage. But they invest much more heavily in doing that than they do in showing you what the film's about. If they know they got a good one, they just show you a clip, tell you something briefly, and they don't have to invest that much. Word of mouth will be enough. As I catch up a couple of comments here really quickly, because I'm way behind, I'm sure. Unknown says gangs have actual books of their own laws which supersede all other laws as well as any other cultural or social norms. Gary Edwards said over patronization of black criminals by withholding names and descriptions is done to generate backlash, hate against black community. It's a divide and conquer strategy by the government. I can agree with that. Bernob says, sorry to hear about the mother-in-law. Did she have the C virus before the stroke? Yes, she did. She was diagnosed with it, took her shot and her boosters, and was on C virus medication. It's one of those bottles that's on that. It's actually the one that's in the box. If you look at the short or you look at the video I put up this morning, the white box is the C virus pills. So, but, you know, half the stuff there, stroke is one of the possible side effects. There's no way to tell. There's no way to tell. All people said Travis Trust Fund Baby Taylor are agents like the Laurel Canyon celebrities of the 60s exposed by Dave McGowan in weird scenes. And Unknown says, say no to sports ball. Yeah, really. Urban Angst is here. Glad you could make it, Urban. Gary Edwards says mainstream media is finally controlled by the corporations in order to hide the truth and generate artificial chaos. Yeah, they want us at each other's throats. I mean, ultimately, that's the idea, divide and conquer. I've made the analogy before, something I've mentioned several times. You might be familiar. There's an old Chinese saying about a hand that we are like fingers on a hand. We're all separate and we all do our things. But if something goes wrong, you can come together. And then you have power, but not if something is trying to keep your fingers separate. Something blocks them or cuts them off. We can all be different and separate, but if we can come together, we can be powerful. They want dividers between every one of those units so that we can never cooperate and get along and face an opposition. Bernob says the elite have their own agenda and are all bought up with big pharma. And Helter said pharmaceuticals are advertised and promoted in the USA like it's a McDonald's Happy Meal that you got to get quick before they run out. I know, absolutely. And Urban says all I see are EV car commercials. All the cars look the same with the same overwhelming crappy adventure music. Yeah, I really want to see you drive your EV vehicle deep up into the mountains and watch how long you last and get ready for the long hike home. And Gary Edwards says trash or cheap propaganda, gross movie trailers are subversive. Yeah, but you know what I mean. But yeah, there's a lot of quote wokeism in modern film. Makes it really cringy to watch. And Zane is here. Thanks for joining us today, Zane. Well, I am way behind. Dragon says the general population in the USA don't realize it's illegal in any other country to advertise drugs like the US does it. That's right. Most other countries, I believe, pretty much, right? Most, if not all other countries, they won't permit prescription medication to be advertised. And Unknown says back in the 90s, they spliced bits of movie scenes together for commercials to fake scenes that weren't actually in the film. Yeah, or they used scenes that were cut. They used scenes that were cut from the movie in the advertisement. I remember I've seen films like that. Like, where's this scene at? I don't know. And Chris says, I bet China is behind the pharmacy cyber attack. Who knows? Who knows? And there's Donna Beaver. Says, All people not at my house are extended families. I guess that's a side conversation that I missed there. And Zane says, united we stand, divided we fall. That's why they say that. That's why that's important. That is why that is important, very important, for us to not be divided, not be split up. But everything out there is designed to tear people apart. Young versus old, black versus white, male versus female versus category C, D, E, F, and G. Puck says, Biden says we're going to have electric tanks. No. No. The regular vehicles don't work. They don't, it's not practical. It's not practical for like a heavy armored vehicle like that, a tank, a jet. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make sense. Gary says, ask your doctor so we can push big pharma and get kickbacks. So your doctor doesn't know what that stuff does any more than you do. The pharmacist doesn't know either. Something I believe I said in the video this morning, that we're at a point now where your average doctor or pharmacist doesn't know what this stuff does any more than anyone else. And all they can do is Google a sheet and either read it or give it to you. You could do that yourself. They don't know what the stuff is. They don't know what it's for. There's way too many medications to keep track of. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, and it's killing us. That stuff's dangerous. That stuff's dangerous. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I don't see how people could be so bought in. And Adonna says the shooters were young blacks. This says it all. And Chris said environmentally friendly war zone. Yeah, indeed. Environmentally friendly war zone. Oh, no. Yeah, maybe they should start using air guns so that there won't be the explosion of gunpowder, because that's bad for the environment. How about that? Go back to using bows and arrows. Go back to that. Start using swords again. Monkey says it's creepy to see the amount of prescriptions for weight loss. It's like one medication that got in massive trouble. Ozemric or something like that. Well, there was one that Wegovy or some. I think that was the one. Is it Wegovy? I had shown the commercial a couple of months back because the side effects were insane. The side effects. It was a weight loss drug, prescription weight loss drug, and I had to revisit that ad a few weeks later because that quick there was lawsuits because people were dying from it. Lawsuits already. And Puck says, speaking of medications, watch the movie THX 1138. Yes, that THX 1138, that's an early, what is his name? Not Steven Spielberg. Is it Steven Spielberg? An early Steven Spielberg film from way back. It had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in it. Everybody there was like heavily medicated, and dude got off his prescription. Well, he was given his extra pills to his partner because hers weren't working anymore, and then he got some clarity. It's a weird movie. It's one that a lot of people have forgotten about. Zane says bows and arrows are just as bad for the environment. Are they? And Cruising says heavy vehicles in general are murder over long distances. Last spring when I drove to Ohio, I spent over 100 by bringing fuel bladders with me and filling up near the Florida border for the round trip. And Monkey says, and there were other prescriptions that are meant for those with smoking addictions, and it's meant to lose the appetite. It's ridiculous. And Puck says cop killer arrows were banned. George Lucas. Thank you. Gary Edwards says George Lucas. I got him mixed up with Steven Spielberg. But yeah, that's one of his early films. It's a weird name. And, it's an odd movie. But yeah, it's worth taking a look at. THX 1138. Haven't thought about that film in years. Zane says, think of the trees you're hacking down to make those bows and arrows. Well, I would tell you to use aluminum or vinyl shafts, but then people will complain about the use of oil in their production. Oh my God. Here we go. As we shift gears, and we're going to jump to Alabama. And this is an Associated Press article. Alabama lawmakers would define man and a woman based on sperm and ova. Really? Really? So here we go. Montgomery, Alabama. Alabama lawmakers are advancing legislation that would strictly define who is considered female and male based on their reproductive systems. Opponents said the move could erode the rights of transmogrified and intersex people in the state. Quote, there are only two sexes and every individual is either male or female, declares the Senate bill approved in committee on Tuesday. It defines sex based on reproductive anatomy and says schools and local governments can establish single-sex spaces, such as bathrooms, based on those definitions. A House committee plans to take up similar legislation Wednesday. The bills are part of a wave of legislation in Republican states that seeks to regulate which bathrooms transmogrified people use, which school sports teams they can play on, and to prohibit gender-affirming medical care, such as puberty blockers and hormone therapy, particularly for minors. I'm seriously against that, particularly since most of it is getting paid for with tax dollars. I mean, if you want to butcher yourself, be old enough to make the decision and spend your own money. Quote, I am here today to stand for women's rights, said Republican Senator April Weaver, the sponsor of the bill. She said the definitions will guide courts, hold still, in interpreting existing laws and codifies the time-honored definitions of male, female, woman, man, boy, girl, mother, father, and sex. So, gee, what a novel idea. Too bad no one ever thought of it before. Let's define what's male and female based on the biology of the individual. Too bad no one for hundreds of thousands of years ever thought of that. Now we have to clearly define it in the media in order to classify this. Seriously. Let me catch up a couple of comments. Puck wants to know if you have to register your bow. God, I hope not. Where I am, of course not. But some states have weird restrictive laws about certain types of weapons. So I wouldn't be surprised to find out there's a state or a county out there somewhere where you can't even have a bow, or you have to have a license or something stupid. Gary said they transported George Lucas to a hotel once. Nice guy. Now I have a lame claim to fame. There you go. Zane says they make their own bows and arrows. He throws away about half the shafts he cuts because the season is horrible and they are effectively junk. Okay. And Chris said that they went to buy a new gun last week, and on the questionnaire form they had male, female, or other. Really? What state was that, Chris? And Puck says ghost bows should be illegal. Oh my God. And Chris said all the gender insanity is what happens before the collapse of civilization. And then Helter says, wonder what will happen when things like genome mapping or neuroscience determine that gender identity has more to do with the wiring than the plumbing. And All People says, well, some women are born without ovaries, thus they have no ovum, but they are still biological. A simple chromosome test should be added to the bill to help confirm who's a female or male. And Dragon says it's yet another stupid attempt on the part of Alabama's lawmakers to earn street cred with the base during a primary season. And Chris confirms it's Nebraska. Nebraska is what state they are in that had other on their form. Interesting. But as you all know, this has turned into a huge problem. It's a huge can of worms, particularly the fact that often tax dollars are being now used to pay for these surgeries, the fact that the surgeries are irreversible. You can't really fix it. Once something has been removed, it's a permanent part of your body. You're not putting it back. So a lot of people change their mind afterwards, and there's nothing that can be done for them. And I hate the idea of children being put into this. They're way too young to make. They're way too young to make those kinds of decisions. I just think it's funny that they have to clarify this. They have to codify it. They have to put it into law to clearly determine something that people have known for centuries, for eons, and as far back as recorded history and before that even. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And that's just another thing to keep us all divided. It's another thing to break everybody up and have everybody at each other's throats, piss everyone off, have them angry about something, is what it is. But we'll jump to New York again. A few things to say there. Eric Adams. I don't know how he's going to make it through another election. Fox News article: New York City is spending $53 million on migrant prepaid debit cards, with 1 in 4 kids living in poverty. I don't know how accurate that is, but here we go. As New York's City Mayor Eric Adams sets to dish out $53 million in prepaid credit cards to illegal migrants. Illegal migrants. At least they admit that they're illegal. They're not necessarily migrants, but at least they admit they're illegal, okay? A startling new study has revealed that more of the city's residents are becoming poorer, with 1 in 4 children now living in poverty. Well, they have to raise taxes to pay for these illegal immigrants somehow. So, yeah, you're gonna be poorer. Nearly 2 million, or 23% of the city's residents, were unable to afford basic necessities like housing and food in 22, according to a new study by Columbia University and Robinhood, a large philanthropic organization. That was a jump of nearly 500,000 residents compared to 2021, with the child poverty rate also increasing from 15% to 25%, according to the study. Well, if you're following the study, it's actually 23%, not 25, unless you're rounding up. That means around 420,000 New York City kids were living in poverty in 2022. Okay. The report calculated the national poverty rate at 12%, with the New York City poverty rate nearly double that figure. Quote, pandemic-era policies stabilized life for many, but as benefits expired, hardship and poverty became more widespread, the report says. Are you sure they didn't just become codependent on whatever they were getting during the pandemic? And now that they're off of that, they realize they've got to work again, and it's hard on them. These policy shifts, coupled with soaring rent prices, historically elevated levels of inflation, and the rising cost of basic needs, made it nearly impossible to make ends meet, much less withstand the financial shocks brought on by the economic climate. Asian, Black, and Latino New Yorkers were found to be much more likely to live in poverty than white New Yorkers. They got to dig that in too, right? About 24% of Asians in the city are living in poverty, compared to 23% of Blacks, 26% of Latinos, and 13% of whites. Where do they get these numbers from? You got to be careful with statistics. I've chewed a lot of statistics apart in some of these discussions, because the statistics are based on interviewing like 500 people, and that's supposed to represent everybody. But that's just another way to create some division right there. The startling figures have come to light as the city continues to pour billions of taxpayer dollars into catering to the influx of illegal migrants who have arrived in need of food, housing, clothing, and health care. Yeah. New York City has provided for more than 178,600 migrants since the spring of 22, with approximately 65,000 still in the city's care, according to the mayor's office. I guess the rest of them learned how to hustle and steal and shoplift, and so they don't need the handouts anymore. The city has also enrolled tens of thousands of school-aged children in public schools, while taxpayers have also footed bills for migrants to submit more than 35,000 work authorizations, temporarily protected status, and asylum applications. Yeah, they have less money because they're paying for all of this. Adams has said the crisis will cost the city at least $10 billion, and Governor Hochul recently revealed that the state will pitch in another $500 million to help the migrants. Oh, isn't that sweet? Meanwhile, the roads aren't getting fixed, the trash isn't getting picked up, the sewage isn't getting pumped, police officers are getting laid off, firefighters are getting laid off, sanitation workers are getting laid off. But yeah, raise taxes and take care of the migrants. Great idea. Great idea. Chris says Asians are actually the richest group in America along with Indians. Not according to this article. Helter says it's like Adams is actively trying to get people to side with Texas. And Gary says, I wonder if you can get illegal immigrant credit cards through the mail. That would be bueno. Yeah, that would be great. All People says, why drag Asians into the issue all of a sudden? I don't know. But yeah, that's a good point. They don't really mention them too often. That's an interesting point. Asians and Indians don't get mentioned very often in a lot of this stuff. But yeah, are they trying to divide them away as well? Maybe they're trying to do that. Wow. It says a family of 3 could receive $932 a month. Let me see. All right. The Post revealed on Tuesday that a family of 4 migrants with 2 children under the age of 17 could get $15,200 a year under this program. A family of 3 could receive $932 a month, while a family of 4 could net a $1,195 allowance per month to use at bodegas, grocery stores, supermarkets, and convenience stores, according to a breakdown provided by the Post by the city's Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development. The monthly amounts increase for those who have children, $100 a month for those with kids under 5, and $36 a month, or 36 per month on the prepaid cards per the city's cost chart, according to the Post. It's basically welfare. Zane wants to know if we're talking about American Indians or Asian Indians. They're not talking about native Indians. They're talking about Punjabs. They're talking about people from what used to be called Hindustan. Gary Edwards says, I wonder if there's a calendar or schedule for manufactured crisis. Yeah, it should be on a calendar somewhere. And Puck says it sounds like welfare pre-Clinton. It is welfare. That is a welfare program. That's essentially what that is. They're giving these people money. There's no incentive. This is the problem. And we've talked about this several times. There's no incentive to do better, to improve, to advance anything if all your needs are going to be met. There's no incentive. It's like the analogy I like to use is with a child with allowance. You've got little Jimmy. If you give little Jimmy an allowance for nothing, it's never enough. He'll complain. He'll want more. He'll whine. He'll throw a tantrum. As time wears on, he'll expect more, and he'll expect his allowance. And if it doesn't come, where's my allowance? What's the problem? What's the holdup? He never appreciates it. But if little Jimmy has to do chores and the allowance is payment for those chores, he's earned it. And he understands the value of it. If we're just going to give these people everything, where's the incentive? Where the hell is the incentive? There's none. All people said for some reason the CIA lamestream mockingbird media wants to present the obvious lie that Nigerians are more successful immigrants than Asians and the most successful minorities in the U.S. Oh, really? Nigerians, huh? Where are they? Where are they? I'll make the argument again. I ought to put this on a bumper sticker. When's the last time? Many of you have heard this. When's the last time you saw a group of people from the Middle East or Africa stripping a roof? When's the last time you saw a group of people from the Middle East or Africa or Asia even standing out in front of Lowe's or Home Depot at 5 a.m. looking for pickup work? When's the last time you saw somebody from Asia, Africa, or the Middle East landscaping? It's all South Americans. A lot of them may have come here illegally too, but at least they'll work. I got to give them that. At least they'll work. These other people are here for a handout. And Urban says welfare or a transitional form of universal basic income. Blah. Somebody's still got to pay for it. And Chris says replacement is in full effect in Canada, America, UK, France, Italy, and Nordic countries. Yeah. Australia, New Zealand, name it. Name it, name it, name it. And Chris says they're bringing in people who live in barbaric Muslim countries and expecting them to integrate. They're not going to integrate. They didn't want to come here for that. They're going to bring their problems and their beliefs and their ways and their systems and expect you to conform to them. And God help us, our lawmakers are often willing to do it. Often willing to do it. You want to come to our country? Yeah, you're welcome. But we should expect something. We should expect you to be productive. We should expect you to be honest. We should expect you to cooperate with the culture and with the society. You know, we should expect you to try to learn the language. And many of the people that are coming into this country, they're not doing any of it. They're not. And all it's doing is unraveling the fabric of our society and of our culture. And that goes for any of these Western nations. Eric Peter said, asked a kid in my upstate New York hometown, Jamaicans worked the apple orchards, but that has all changed now to Mexicans. And Chris says his old neighborhood was working class prior to 2020. After 2020, it became dominated by Muslim families living 12 people in one bed, one bath, none of them working. And Urban says they are not here to integrate. No, they're not. They're here to try to turn our culture and our country into theirs. That's what they're here to do. They're here to transform us, not to be transformed. That's the problem. And that makes it an invasion, a soft invasion. No shots fired. Not yet, anyways. Gary Edwards says there are many forms of jihad, financial, literally, jihad and immigration, jihad as well. And Unknown says they integrated in India by offering Indians and seceding. Pakistan. Yeah, that's what ended up happening after Gandhi and his protests pushed the British government out. And the British warned them, it's all going to go to shit if we leave. Guess what happened? Civil war like the next day. But we are at the top of the hour. So with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. One last look at Dusty sleeping in the corner for those of you who can see and are not just listening to the podcast. Again, this is Coffee Talk. So please do find me on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and of course, Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks again, of course, to everybody who was able to join us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And with that, we'll wrap it up and see you again tomorrow.